2, 1.
What happens within the party you have called home?
I think it's a very good question. Look, the Republican Party remains divided. An insurgency has taken it over. The Reagan coalition died tonight. The orthodoxies of the conservative project that ran in a continuum from Goldwater to Buckley to Reagan have collapsed. The free trade consensus, the belief in these post-war institutions globally that have preserved the liberal order. Not for nothing, I think it's important to understand that we're at an hour where the last of the World War II generation is dying, that they're passing on. We're moving beyond a point of living memory from a global catastrophe that killed 85 million people. And the peace of the world that we've seen for the last 70 years is abnormal in the history of the world. And so we talk about undermining NATO, undermining the collective security agreements, saying that maybe the Japanese and the Koreans should have their own nuclear weapons, which are positions very quickly adopted by the far-right nationalist elements in those countries. There will be a coalition of Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate that will work to obstruct that. But what we saw tonight is the shattering of a political coalition on the Republican side, as well as a massive repudiation of Clintonism and the Democratic Party. And so we now know when Lawrence talks about Kamala Harris, we just saw the last baby boomer presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. There will be generational change now inside the Democratic Party. It's at one of its weakest governing points in the last 100 years. And so, how politics shakes out from this, I think, is anyone's guess.
Chris Matthews, there was a powerful sentence in there. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Yeah. That's powerful if you're feeling forgotten.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, not everybody, I never speak for anybody else, but I was wrong about the strength. I always saw, I think about the Trump guy as an NFL game on a freezing cold day, and these are guys wearing jobbers, white guys, jobbers, rooting for a hopeless team usually that's going to lose, like Tim Russert rooting for the Bills. Just rooting for these teams. It's about their psyche. They vote. They're for the Eagles, or they're Steelers, or for the Green Bay, or they're for the Vikings, and they just get into this thing of it's like that's all they got. It's juju. It's like in the movie, Yeah. It's like Secret Linings or Silver Linings Playbook, and it's like they put all their money on this guy. It's a thing we're going to have to understand. And I think what happened. I think James Carver was here earlier. I just think that what happened was there was this movement, whatever you want to call it, maybe you have to call it that now, up against the liberal establishment, if you will, or centrist establishment, or Republican establishment, all three of them maybe. And there wasn't much there to offer an alternative. There wasn't much there. And that's why I go to the infrastructure, because I think in the end, whatever he does, whatever the Democrats wanted to do in the end, it's going to have to do something to rebuild the country. We are in terrible shape.
With what money?
I know the argument. I know, because the Congress approved.
There's a reason.
Lawrence, I know in the end
Republicans won't do it.
We'll see what they do under him. My argument is, of course, the Congress controls the purse strings. Of course, it'll have to be some kind of public-private partnership. They'll have to sign some way of borrowing for it, if you will.
Roads aren't a public-private partnership.
I know. But
they are airports, tax money.
Airports and things like that, and certainly Penn Station has to be rebuilt. There's so much. If you travel the world, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Europeans, everybody has everything rapid and modern, and we don't.
With tax money, all paid for 100% with tax money.
You're arguing about
Republicans will not raise or spend.
If you want to argue that argument, I can accept that. I will offer the positive argument that you may be wrong. That's all.
The money will appear from some. This is a Trump dream you're offering here. This is the Trump dream of infrastructure paid for with money we don't have.
He's saying that the Republican Party and its ethos and all of its morals and all of its strategy disappears, and they all do what Trump wants.
No, what I'm saying is that we go to war, we find the money. and we do it. And I just think
we don't. We went to war on a tax cut, and we didn't pay for it. That's another world you're talking about.
Borrowing.
These Republicans have ended that. That's
Borrowing
not
at
how it
2%
works.
isn't that hard.
But just to go back to the fact, those guys you were talking about who go and root for the hopeless team and because it's what they do. Trump appealed to them by saying, not just I'm going to make America great again, but that the problem really is those immigrants, and the problem is those Muslims, and the problem is those people in the inner cities, and so. How does that's what we're left with? Does he knit that back together? Does he exacerbate?
Okay.
It's not generic attention.
I need to call a brief timeout because we are welcoming some audience from our NBC stations. Now that we have reached the start of the morning, the day after Election Day, we welcome those joining our live coverage. Continuing here on MSNBC, we look at our electronic superimposed map of the nation on home ice here out back 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York, where the sun will be rising on the President-elect Donald John Trump of Queens, New York, and Fifth Avenue, New York more recently. One of the things we'll have to get used to, the Northern White House, I guess, will be here in Midtown Manhattan, unambiguously with his name on the side. Now a very highly defended Secret Service location. And Donald Trump and the extended family we saw tonight will be moving into 1600 Pennsylvania.
The suspense is over in a big way. There are still some loose ends at this late hour, this early hour now. There are still 4 states yet where we, at this point, don't have a call. Minnesota, Michigan, New Hampshire, Arizona. That will make a difference in terms of the overall electoral vote. We also don't yet have a bottom line in terms of the popular vote. It is possible, as we're heading into these last calls, these last tallies coming in, that Hillary Clinton may have won the popular vote and lost the electoral vote, which has its own sort of, and you see how close they are there. In the national popular vote, less than 1 million votes between them, with still a lot of votes to count, particularly on the West Coast, and so where Hillary Clinton did very well. So we may yet see a division in the results here, with Donald Trump winning the presidency, winning the Electoral College, and Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote. If so, that'll be a remarkable streak for the Democratic Party winning the electoral vote, but particularly bittersweet streak if in 2 of those presidential elections, in 2000 and again in 2016, they won the popular vote, but not the presidency itself.
Katie Tur, who was along for all of the ride in this campaign, is at the New York Hilton, where the crowd is breaking up and the flags will be taken down. Katie, your reaction after what you witnessed today and tonight?
Oh, what a long, strange trip it's been, Brian. I've been doing this now, as you mentioned, for 17, 18 months. Frankly, I've just lost track of the months that I've been on the campaign trail with Donald Trump, and truly have been a witness to what Donald Trump wants to call and likes to call a movement, and that movement coming into fruition tonight. What I can tell you is that from city to city, from crowd to crowd, the anger was palpable, the frustration was palpable, but there were also a number of crowds who were jubilant. It was kind of like a rock concert meets religious revival at some of these events. For the most part, these crowds were made up of white people, very few Hispanics, very few African Americans along the way, and as we got closer to Election Day, they got very angry. These crowds were not pleased, and the chants we heard and some of the rhetoric we heard, not just from Donald Trump, but from his supporters, really shocked the political system. Yesterday in Manchester, New Hampshire, at his penultimate rally, a man, while Governor Pence was speaking and talking about Hillary Clinton, a man yelled out, "Assassinate that B word." And that was something that even following Trump and hearing all that I have heard, certainly sent shockwaves through me. Assassinate somebody. And that sort of rhetoric wasn't, even though I was surprised, it shouldn't have surprised me because we've seen so much of that on the campaign trail. I've tried to talk to the campaign about it, and I've tried to talk to Rudy Giuliani today about that sort of anger and where it goes, and how do they harness it? Is Donald Trump able to do that by coming on stage and giving a gracious concession speech and saying that we all do need to work together and inviting